When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left a note that said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I finally made it without them, they reached out trying to reconnect. When I was 17, I came back to a completely empty home and a note on the kitchen counter. It was the cruelest thing I've ever read. It just said, "You'll figure it out." I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I figured they were just tired of pretending they loved me. But the truth was, they had never even pretended. When I was 13, I made a birthday cake for my mom by myself, only to have her call it clumpy. At 15, I tutored my brother through finals. All the while he called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my dad so he could cover bills, but got yelled at when I brought it up later after he said I was useless. I was always useful, but never loved. My parents and my brother, my only family, had packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from the landlord a week later. I had a week to move out because they'd canceled the lease early. I slept at a friend's house for 3 nights before I ran out of places to go. Eventually, I was sleeping in the back of a storage unit I rented with the last of my savings. I snuck in and showered at the YMCA, ate peanut butter with a spoon for my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, applied for jobs on free library computers, and pretended everything was okay. Eventually, I got hired at a diner, server for the night shift. The manager was gruff, but fair, paid me cash under the table until I could get an ID. She let me nap in the break room once when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion. I clawed my way through it, bought a prepaid phone, saved every single receipt, watched free YouTube tutorials on finance and goal setting. The first year, I barely survived, but I made it through. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a temp job cleaning out office files. It paid triple what I made serving. I said yes. That job led to another, and another. I learned quickly, showed up early, and asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business. Just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, my own office, and a client roster that included companies I used to dream about. And by 29, I was officially a millionaire. Not influencer millionaire, not fake it for Instagram millionaire. Actual savings with a retirement account, no debt, paid off apartment, health insurance I could afford. The first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures, I cried. Throughout those tough years, my family never reached out, not even once. I saw my brother pop up in a suggested friends list once. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if he ever told his wife about me, if he said I ran away, or if he says nothing at all. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to hate them. But truthfully, it was never hate. It was heartbreak. I go to therapy now because I want to stay unbroken. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, like coworkers, classmates, and strangers who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement blew up online. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox filled with messages of support, gratitude, and strangers telling me I put words to their pain. And then, one email stood out. The subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. No apology. Just a paragraph about hearing my side and how maybe we could talk. Then another message, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I sat with it and wondered if healing means looking back or staying forward. I didn't respond right away, so I needed time to process. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take at least a week before making any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said during our session. "There's no rush to respond." So I did. I focused on work, went to the gym, had dinner with friends. Normal stuff. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, closing them again. My mom's message felt cold, clinical almost, like she was reaching out to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter but somehow felt more genuine. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to reply to my brother first. Just something simple. I wrote, "It's been 12 years. What changed?" Then I hit send before I could overthink it. His response came within an hour. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left me, that he didn't have a choice, that he'd always wondered about me, that he'd looked me up online a few times over the years but never had the courage to reach out, that seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't buy it, not completely. If he'd been so concerned, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He admitted that money was tight for them, that my parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. I felt my stomach drop. There it was, the real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then my mom sent a follow-up email with old family photos attached. Pictures of me as a baby, pictures of us at the beach when I was maybe 5 or 6, pictures of me and Michael building a snowman, happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa during our next session. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also said that closure might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded along, but inside I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to understand why they left me. And a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first. Just him. No parents. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees, like strangers. The first 20 minutes were painful. Small talk about the weather, about my flight, about his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Michael said, his voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you behind until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them. I just listened, watching his face for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but I'd been fooled before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind?" He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine on your own. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA and working night shifts at 17. His face crumpled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay behind, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you'd chosen to separate from us. All lies." By the end of our meeting, I wasn't sure what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business, didn't directly ask for money, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She pointed out that while my brother seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He'd been 15, not 5. Old enough to pick up a phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me at some point in 12 years. That night, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael must have. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice sounded older, raspier. She cried when I said hello, started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed, how special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked my brother. Why me? Her answer was different. "We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor." I hung up on her, blocked her number immediately, threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I had an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about how Michael's wife needed surgery, about how they were facing eviction. Then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life, not a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, and there it is. She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour, about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, told him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and telling. "I'm really disappointed, Emma," he wrote. "Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success." All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child, pushed at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Michael called, left a voicemail apologizing for his email, said he understood my position, said he still wanted a relationship on my terms, said he'd respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give him one more chance, but with my guard up. I went to Bali anyway, spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields, and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the subject lines. I also had a text from Michael asking if we could talk again. I agreed to a phone call, nothing more. The call started okay. He apologized again for pushing. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me," he said. "I'm in therapy now too." I believed that part. He sounded different, less defensive. We talked about his kids, about my business, normal stuff. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him next weekend, asked if I would consider meeting them, just for an hour, in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not ready for that, Michael." He pushed a little, but backed off when I got quiet. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I was afraid of seeing them. Not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Michael texted again. Said our mom was crying all night after he told her I wouldn't meet them. Said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I felt panicky. Blocked Michael's number immediately. Then I called my assistant and told her I was working from home for the week. Ordered groceries for delivery. Basically hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called up. Said there was a couple asking for me. Wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. Told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. "Emma, we drove 8 hours to see you," his angry voice said. "You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze in bed, heart racing, checked the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing in my hallway like they had any right to be there. "Emma, please." My mom's voice came through the door. "We just want to talk to you." "We know you're in there," my dad added. "We love you. We're sorry." I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I called building security immediately, told them not to let those people up again. The guard sounded concerned, asked if I needed police. I said no, just don't let them up. Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich and sat with me while I cried, told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, that what they were doing was harassment, not reconciliation. After she left, I got an email from Michael. He was furious. Said I'd humiliated our parents. Said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me. Said his wife needed surgery next month and they were hoping I could help. Said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while. Booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She'd been one of the people who helped me when I was homeless. Let me crash on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes in a suitcase when my phone rang. Unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called. Said there was a woman downstairs having what looked like a medical issue. Said she was asking for me by name. Claimed to be my mother. I felt sick. Told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded uncomfortable but agreed. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later. Checked the lobby carefully before entering. No sign of them. I felt relieved but also weirdly guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed. Told me the ambulance had come. That the woman had been having chest pains. That she'd been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, I got another call from Michael. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom had a heart attack. He was crying. She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out. I hung up on him. Called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened. Asked if I was a terrible person. Emma, listen to me, she said firmly. You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself. I did. Spent the weekend with Rachel. Told her everything. She remembered when my family abandoned me. Remembered how broken I'd been. She was furious on my behalf. They don't deserve a minute of your time, she said, pouring me another glass of wine.